When Caitlin Clark sat out the WNBA All-Star game, ESPN and the league saw it as their golden opportunity. Finally, they could prove the league was bigger than just one player, silence the critics, and show the world women's basketball didn't rely solely on Caitlin's star power. But instead, they got caught spinning a story that wasn't true, manipulating numbers to hide a devastating ratings collapse. Fans noticed instantly, analysts called it out, and now the WNBA and ESPN have a full-blown crisis on their hands. And the WNBA players, they might have made things even worse. From bizarre protest t-shirts demanding bigger paychecks to a disastrous performance on the court, the players fumbled their biggest moment. But how deep does this go? And what exactly are they trying so desperately to hide?
It's fine to just say, just post the ratings. But like, it is another situation than pretending like Caitlin Clark doesn't exist.
See, ESPN has a very specific strategy when it comes to reporting on Caitlin Clark. They don't outright lie, but they're masters at hiding inconvenient truths. The network loves celebrating record-breaking viewership and impressive audience growth, especially when it fits their narrative about the WNBA thriving independently of any single player. But the moment Caitlin's involvement skews their narrative, suddenly the numbers become selective and comparisons get conveniently blurry.
Well, Uncle KC, ESPN was comparing this year's All-Star game to 2023. Why? Why in the hell would they do that? I'll tell you why ESPN did this. This is another example of the mainstream media protecting the WNBA. This is another example of ESPN polishing the turd with this dump of a league.
Take the aftermath of the 2025 WNBA draft as a prime example. ESPN proudly touted a 119% increase in viewership. Sounds amazing, right? But here's the catch. They compared it not to 2024, the year Caitlin Clark set the all-time draft viewership record, but to 2023. By skipping 2024, ESPN conveniently avoided admitting that viewership had actually plummeted by 49%. And this isn't an isolated incident. ESPN pulled the same stunt earlier in the year during the 2025 NCAA March Madness. Throughout the early rounds, the Sweet 16, Elite 8, they happily compared viewership to previous years. But once they hit the Final Four in the national championship, where Caitlin Clark had previously smashed ratings records, they suddenly stopped making year-over-year comparisons. Instead, they vaguely celebrated it as the third highest viewership ever. Sounds impressive until you realize the two higher years were 2023 and 2024. Both years fueled almost entirely by Caitlin Clark's historic runs.
This is historic. And they were like, scored historic viewership. How is it historic when it's like half of last year? Last year was nearly 4 million. How is it historic when it's like half of last year?
So what happened when fans did the math ESPN didn't want them doing? It revealed an astonishing truth. Viewership had plunged by over 10 million viewers compared to Caitlin's previous appearances. ESPN knew that showing these numbers side by side would expose the reality they were desperate to hide. Without Caitlin Clark driving the narrative, audiences weren't nearly as interested.
I can't imagine, folks, you know how many NBA players can get injured? And the prices would never drop to this low. LeBron James can be injured, Steph Curry could be injured, Kevin Durant could be in, and the prices still will not drop to be this low. $75? Folks, I'm sure there's some high school football teams down in Texas that charge you at least $75 to get to a home game.
Yet ESPN's issues are merely a symptom of a larger problem, because the entire WNBA ecosystem seems intent on downplaying Caitlin Clark's influence. And as you're about to see, their awkward attempts to minimize her spotlight are creating an even bigger mess.
I just said we would not be talking about Caitlin Clark the way that we do if it wasn't for that moment with Angel Reese. And I will die on this hill. I will die on this hill.
I was with you until that.
I will die on this hill. I will die on this hill.
It's kinda obvious that the WNBA seems uncomfortable with Caitlin Clark's dominance. Every time she earns major recognition, like winning Time Athlete of the Year or snagging an ESPY, the league instead does not give her full credit. When Caitlin landed on Time's cover, suddenly there were strange demands that other WNBA stars be included, as if acknowledging Clark alone was somehow unfair. Even Caitlin's own coach couldn't celebrate her achievements without carefully shifting praise to other players, almost apologizing for recognizing Clark's greatness.
noticed or heard about it, but during the game, Caitlin got honored as the WNBA Player of the Year in the ESPYs. Just what does it mean to have her impact so far? I mean, there are a lot of really good players in this league, and she got honored as the best player in the league by the ESPYs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she continues to get new awards. She continues to break barriers. She continues to do things that we haven't seen before. I mean, obviously you think about the Stewie's MVPs of the league, and championship winners, and Asia's MVPs of the league and championship winners, and of course Sue Bird, who was sitting in the building today. And Caitlin is so fortunate, as well as all these guys, really. I mean, that they don't know anything any different than the WNBA.
Media commentators went even further, suggesting Clark's popularity was entirely due to rivalries, moments, or controversy, not her undeniable talents. It got so absurd that whenever Caitlin's popularity surged, suddenly her fans were labeled as toxic, accused of ruining the sport, or even painted as problematic outsiders.
The new fans are sucking life out of the WNBA right now.
We'll start with you, Kels, because Lord Jesus, your team and their fans,
Jesus,
they be getting up in everybody's business.
I think so many fans, feel they have the freedom to say whatever they want to us, and unfortunately, there's a lot of nasty things that come with it. They don't have people coming to their job saying these nasty things. So, we definitely have to protect the players better.
Rather than embracing the biggest star the league has ever seen, the WNBA's bizarre need to downplay Clark's impact only revealed their own insecurity, and it set the stage for one of their most embarrassing weekends yet. As Caitlin Clark's popularity exploded, her fans quickly became the WNBA's new scapegoat. Suddenly, these enthusiastic supporters, the ones filling arenas, boosting ratings, and buying merchandise, were portrayed as villains. League commentators openly called them toxic and claimed they were damaging the culture of women's basketball. Players even suggested Clark's fans were too critical, disrespectful, or worse, actively harmful. Even teams like the Phoenix Mercury hinted Indianapolis, Clark's home, wasn't welcoming or safe for players. Instead of harnessing the passionate fan base Clark created, the league seemed intent on alienating them. Each accusation, each subtle jab sent one clear message: Caitlin's fans weren't wanted. But in turning fans into foes, the league ignored a harsh reality. These same fans held the power. An All-Star weekend might have just revealed it.
Even without Caitlin Clark, it was the second highest rated WNBA All-Star game ever, and that is a huge point of distinction. Two things are clear. If Caitlin Clark plays in the All-Star game, it will set records. But now, because of her popularity, even if she doesn't, it will break records and be the second highest ever, only beaten by the time she played in it. And that matters.
With Caitlin Clark ruled out of the All-Star game, everyone braced for a hit. But what happened next was worse than anyone imagined. Almost immediately after news broke of Caitlin's absence, ticket prices crashed, down nearly 50% overnight. Then the ratings came in, and ESPN scrambled into full damage control.
All-Star game ratings from this past weekend was the second most watched WNBA All-Star game ever, behind 2024, no surprise there. The 2025 WNBA All-Star game was the most watched program of the night across all of TV. The night, not the day. With 2.2 million average viewers, up 158% from the 2023 WNBA All-Star game.
They proudly announced the All-Star game had drawn 2.2 million viewers, boldly calling it a historic success. But here's what they hid. Instead of comparing this year's numbers to the previous year when Caitlin played, drawing a record-breaking 3.4 million, they quietly compared it to 2023, before Caitlin was even in the league. Fans immediately called foul, noticing ESPN's selective comparison trick. Because when you look closer, the truth is clear. Ratings dropped a staggering 36% from the previous year, losing over 1 million viewers. ESPN's spin didn't just fail, it backfired spectacularly, turning what could have been an honest acknowledgement of Caitlin's impact into a public embarrassment. And somehow, incredibly, the players themselves managed to make it even worse.
The WNBA players in their pregame warm-up came out in these t-shirts, "Pay us what you owe us." And then immediately pivoted to playing the worst All-Star game in the history of professional All-Star games. They took the court in t-shirts. Pay us what you owe us. We're underpaid. This league has lost millions of dollars, but we're underpaid. Pay us what you owe us. And then they served up a doo-doo sandwich to sports fans.
If the ratings crash wasn't bad enough, WNBA players doubled down with their own disastrous PR stunt. They took the court wearing shirts demanding, "Pay us what you owe us," boldly pressing their message for higher salaries. On paper, it might have seemed like a powerful statement, but it quickly spiraled into a disaster when their actual game performance turned into an embarrassing spectacle. Fans tuned in expecting a showcase of talent and determination. Instead, they got one of the worst played All-Star games in history. The backlash was swift, harsh, and unforgiving. The irony was glorious, but the drama didn't stop there. In the post-game press conference, Kelsey Plum inexplicably took a shot at Caitlin Clark and her team, casually noting that 0 members of Team Clark attended the pre-game protest meeting.
This united front was determined this morning that we had a meeting for, and not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that. But no, we were just
She laughed it off, but Caitlin's fans were furious, and the moment instantly went viral for all the wrong reasons. It was a devastating self-inflicted wound, one that turned their biggest weekend into a full-blown public relations nightmare.
Quote, "As you're fighting for better salaries, you're portraying a united front at your biggest event. You still find a way to throw shade at Caitlin Clark. Why?" Stacey King posted. Quote, "Look at Sabrina's reaction to Plum's comment. It says a lot. Some of these girls are really petty, and someone needs to explain to them it's hurting their league, and it's sad to see." He's not wrong.
Behind closed doors, the owners aren't fooled by ESPN's selective stats. Every single time Caitlin Clark steps onto the court, ratings explode. Even I get excited when Caitlin Clark is in the lineup. She single-handedly has brought so much exposure to the WNBA, surpassing anything the league has seen in decades. We're talking millions of eyeballs, consistently. Yet bafflingly, the league, the media, and even players still refuse to openly acknowledge Caitlin's value. Instead of celebrating the growth she's brought, they continue to undermine her, alienating fans who are directly responsible for their payday. Despite all these missteps, there's still hope for the WNBA, because even in Caitlin's absence, the All-Star game was still the second highest rated ever. The league doesn't have to fight her impact, they need to embrace it. The formula is simple: stop fighting Caitlin Clark's influence and start leveraging it. Welcome the new fans she's bringing in. Celebrate her historic achievements publicly, without apology. If the league can swallow its pride and make that shift, there's no telling how far it could grow. But if they continue ignoring reality, ESPN and the players won't just be hiding Caitlin Clark's impact, they'll be sabotaging their own success. If you're still watching, drop a goat emoji in the comments, because that's exactly what you are. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.